Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us. It's really exciting to be bringing this to you today. So, thank you to everyone who's jumped online. We know there's a bunch of you sitting there at the moment. So, we're going to make this a very interactive session. So, be prepared to jump into the chat when you can. Firstly, welcome everyone. My name is Anthony, and Grant, welcome as well.
Thank you, Anthony, and welcome everyone. Great to have everyone on board. Very excited to get to know you all a little bit better and some of your businesses and your backstory. But at the same time, look forward to presenting our presentation that's a little bit different to the norm, Anthony.
Absolutely. So we're going to get stuck into this today, and I think you've all got it there, seeing what this is all about. And front and center to all of this is going to be about the Branson myth, and we're going to explain what that actually is in a moment. But I think the main thing to know is today, this is going to set you on a journey to absolutely engineering growth. And something that your competitors do not have, and a big emphasis on the not, and we'll reveal why we're emphasizing the not as we go through the presentation. So, Grant, let's get underway.
Fantastic. Well, let's do that. So a little bit of background between myself and Anthony. I've got quite a number of years as a brand scientist where I've worked for big agencies. I've run my own agencies around the world and worked on some key clients. And I've had some great experiences where we've had to turn things around. We've had to find little nuances that would be unique to the client or the campaign. And at the same time, I really love business, Anthony. I really just love what business is, what it stands for, what it does, and what people get out of it, be it the owner and the employees of business. And so I really love talking and working with business owners as to how we move forward to find that unique essence of that particular business. How about yourself?
Yeah, for me, look, my background is very much originally in the media and certainly working in business for the last, oh, I've lost track of how many years. I've been in business for 15 years, but I think we've been doing all of this for about 35. And it's a fascination I have with growing audiences. That's effectively what I've done. And it starts by listening to amazing stories and helping people, as I say, uncover their brilliance and make sure lots of people know about it. And I think that's what's drawn us together and why we've looked at this in a very different way. And I think there's some exciting stuff to share with people. And we're going to put our expertise together to deliver really some different ways of thinking about how you can get growth and what that journey is going to look like. So there's some special offers that we've got for people at the end of this presentation. So you're going to have to stay tuned and be part of this journey as we go through. So what people might do in the chat while we're getting underway, and we're going to go to the next slide in just a second, is let us know where you are contacting us from because we love to know what parts of the world people are in. It's great to see. I can see there are some people in Australia here. We've got Sydney and Melbourne covered already. I can see we've got a few people in the US, so a few people in the Texas area. I think that we've got someone in LA as well. So this is great. So we're going a bit global today, which is fantastic. So good to see that. So a few more coming in, different parts of Australia. Love that. So good. We've got a nice collection of people here today, so we're going to get some interesting responses as we go through it. So I think we should get underway and start explaining to people what this whole Branson myth is, and in our words, really, what it's about not being Branson.
So, with not being Branson, really, at the end of the day, is we all know who Branson is. We all know what he's done. We all know what he's about. We all know his successes. We know about his failures. We know about his island. We know about all these shenanigans that he's ever done as a business entrepreneur, which is fascinating in its own right. And I've had the good fortune to be able to meet with him and talk with him. But at the same time, where Anthony and I are coming from is that not everyone wants to be Branson. What we mean is, yes, we might want to have the wealth, but we not necessarily want to have everything that he's got because that's Branson's story. We're more interested to know your story because everyone and every business has a unique story. Anthony.
Yeah, and I think, Grant, the important thing here about not being Branson as well is that, Branson's living his life that he enjoys, but personally, if I had my own island, do I want to welcome strangers in there to spend several nights with me and have to entertain them on days on end? I'm not sure that's something I particularly want to do. I'm not sure I particularly, when it comes down to it, want to spend my life on an isolated island either. I don't particularly want to run an airline for that matter. So, whilst I admire what Branson has achieved overall, I don't want to be Branson. And I think that's what this is about as well, is it's about carving out what your own journey is and what the destination is. And they're two very important aspects of this. So that's hence the reason we're not being Branson. So there's lots that we're going to learn along the way. There's lots of different emphasis here and a little bit of a teaser that we're going to really get into why we're emphasizing the not part of it and what that actually means. So keep that
What
in
was
mind as
fascinating
we go
about
through.
what was fascinating about Branson is the fact that he started an airline company without buying an aeroplane. And that was a fascinating strategy to understand as to how he got that going. But we're not here to dive into Branson. We have to understand you and to what you're doing and where you're going. So we all know, how is business going? Because we do know that business goes up and down and round and about like a roller coaster does, and it can be a little bit rough sometimes, a little bit scary sometimes, and a little bit exhilarating as well. But at the same time, we'd love to know what type of business you're in. So please let us know in the show notes. And at the same time, what is the thing that really got you interested in this business? We'd love to understand your little bit of your background. But business is a roller coaster, and it's always going to come with a challenge. And the
Yeah, I
way
think
that,
I was going to say,
yeah,
everyone, if you want to jump in and put that in the chat, do you agree with that statement that business is a roller coaster? Let's see what. Look, immediately we're getting lots of yeses in here. I don't think anyone's going to say no to that statement, really, are they? So yes, thank you for confirming that. It very much is a roller coaster ride in business. I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
well, look, I love roller coasters, so I love this picture, but I don't know if I always enjoy the journey of a business being on the roller coaster. I think we like to keep it steady as she goes. And so we're not always got that opportunity because we never know what's up ahead of us. But at the same time, we like to look at things a little bit different. So let me give you an example. If I had to ask everyone in the audience to work out what do you think the number sequence would be for where the car is parked, as to what number do you think that bay would be? I'm going to give it a few seconds there, Anthony, and just let me know when people have put some answers in.
I can see people's brains ticking over trying to work out what it is. We're getting a few guesses here in the chat. I'm going to say I'm not going to read them all out because they're not right so far. So I love this. And by the way, when Grant first showed this to me, I was like all of you. I definitely was not getting this at first. So yeah, there's a few wild guesses here. A few people trying to add up a few things, subtract a few things, multiply a few things probably as well. I don't think anyone's getting it here. So we've got quite a few responses in the chat, but no one is getting it. So it's a bit of it's a bit of a mind bender. I think that's the best way of giving a little bit of a hint to it. Does
All right, so
anyone?
let me take it out of your misery, right? So let's not prolong this. So I'm going to show you the next slide, and then I want to see how quickly people will put in the correct answer.
Look, you can see the relief of people, and oh my goodness, yeah, everyone's getting it, Grant. Everyone's getting it now. So yes, everyone's easily putting in 87. That's the answer. Took a while, but you got there.
So the objective is simple, right, Anthony? At the end of the day, we look at things from a different angle. And that comes from our experience. That comes from us doing this for many, many years of working on many, many accounts, but just be able to look at your business, your opportunity, the marketplace in a little bit of a different angle and to own it a little bit. And so this is our most simplest example I can explain as to how we look at things in the sense of where people were challenged in one way, we can see simplicity in another. And so we like to challenge our clients and look and brainstorm with clients as to how we can unlock what we call the not fair advantage. And that is something that is very, very unique to all of us. I think when it comes to um, why you're not getting the success that you deserve, you know, why are you not shining the brightest? Your lights are on, you're working, you're looking like everyone else down the road, or I'm taking everyone's down the road, but today terms are very different, but everyone is just not standing out. And so, how do we get you to shine a little bit brighter is a little bit more interesting here. And so, it comes down to a couple of key things of just what's your backstory and what's your why as to where you want to go. But if we had to look, for example, at it's not what you think you are, it's what everyone else says you are. Now, that is a very pivotal and heavy statement to take on board and to acknowledge because at the end of the day, you are the master of your destiny. You are in control of your ship, you're the captain, but at the same time, it's what you do that builds that reputation that gets everyone to say what you are rather than what you think you are. Anthony?
Yeah, it's that perception that is so important that people have of you, and often we don't really understand what that perception is. So part of this journey is we are going to be able to show you how we're going to generate some information about what people say you are. So that's something to stay tuned for because that's part of what we're going to talk about towards the end of the presentation. But I think it's really important here again. It's we're emphasizing the not again, and we're going to come back to that in just a moment. But it really is very much about this whole idea that you have to change people's perception of you. Often we have this idea of what we think people think we are, but is that really the truth? And so you have to control that narrative and you have to, and that gives you an opportunity, right? Controlling the narrative gives you an opportunity as to what is the message you're going to put out there so you actually stand out and stand out for the right reasons. So, what I think we want to do, Grant, is we're going to ask a series of questions for people now. And I think we want you to put the answers in the chat. We're going to give you some traffic light options for this. So all you need to do in the chat, and we want you to note it down for yourself as well, because there's going to be 4 questions as we go through here, so not too many. But we want you to keep a track of how many red, orange, and greens you get as you go through this. So, Grant, I think we should go to the first question to ask people, which is going to be about recognition. What level of not are you? And we've worded this in a careful way. We're going to explain what the not means and why we're doing it this way in a little bit. But I want to get a response from each of you saying to this question, in terms of recognition, I'm not visible in my market. I'm not getting the same traction as my competitors, so opportunities are passing me by. Or I stand out and I'm on my way to not being Branson. In other words, you're on your way to having and living your own dream, whether that's a tropical island or something else for you. So let's see that starting to come through in the chat. I want to just put a one and a R, an O or a G. Keep it as simple as you like. So we're getting quite a few reds here. I think we've got 1 or 2 oranges. We certainly do not have any greens, and I expect we don't have any greens because that's why you're here today. But yes, the majority of you are putting in a red. I'm not visible in my market, and certainly for those that are putting orange in, you're obviously getting a little bit of traction, but it's the competitors that are standing out. So that's going to come down to question number 2, Grant. I think this is where we need to have a little bit of a deeper think and talk about success. And success looks like different to everybody. So you define for what that is in your mind first. What is success? And then give us for question number 2, again, the color that you're at. I'm stuck in the grind and not progressing. While I make a profit, I've hit a barrier and cannot get past it. Or the opportunities are just flying in. And again, you're on your way to Branson land. So, which one are you? Okay, we're going through here. We're getting it's pretty similar results again. We're getting mostly reds here. We have two or three oranges. That's great. I think that's to be expected. I think a lot of people, and I suspect, yes, there's a few more oranges coming through here. So probably a little bit of a different mix to the first question. A lot of people in the orange, but a few of you in the red as well. And I think that's important to acknowledge that it happens in business, right? That you get to a certain point and you realize you're not getting any further. Okay, so we're going to come back and explain a little bit more about some of these and how we're progressing, but we want to get a sense of where everyone's at. So let's go to question number three. Now, it's all very well to think about all these things in recognition and success, but do you have a plan? That's the question. And here we go. So, red being I'm reactive and not strategic, or orange being I have a plan but not making any headway, or green once again, you've got a plan, it's working, and you're starting to live that amazing life that you've always wanted to live. I suspect we're not going to see any greens because that's why you're here today. But interesting to see what we've got here in the response to this. A few of you have a plan, but not getting anywhere. I suspect there's a few people that have a plan and haven't looked at the plan since they've got it, and maybe they glance at it on a daily basis, but they're not really enacting it. But I think many of you, as you've seen here, many of you are being reactive and not strategic, particularly when you really think about it. I think it's a bit of an even split we've got between red and orange here. So very interesting mix of what we're getting here with the plan. So it's important, I would say, for you to stay tuned for the rest of it to understand the value of the plan. And that's something we're going to help you work towards. So again, stay tuned as we go through this. So Grant, before we get to the next question and the last of our questions, I think we need to explain a little bit more about what this focus is on not and why we are doing that. So we've got a little bit of a slide here that's one that I think is important here. So first of all, what you see here is the emphasis in the not for most people is on the no, right? So you mostly see the negative. And that's a really interesting dynamic because let me give you a little sample story. I think most of you are probably of the age where you've probably got children, or you certainly worked with children, and you would know that one thing you don't do with a child is give them chocolate before they go to bed. And the answer, when the child comes to you and says, I want some chocolate before I go to bed, you would say, I'm not giving you chocolate. Why are you not giving them chocolate? The child hears the negative, but in reality, the adult hears the positive around that because you know that if the child has chocolate before they go to bed, likely is they're going to get a little bit hyperactive based on the sugar. That's not going to be a good thing, which means they're not going to sleep well, which means they're going to be terrible the next day. So actually not giving them chocolate is a positive because you're going to get them in a better place the next day, even though they're only seeing the negative. And I think, Grant, the answer here is when you get to this T intersection, which is the T, you have two choices. You go left and you head to the negative, or you go right and you go around that and see the positive and the opportunities that present themselves. So this is where we want people to start thinking about this whole idea of not in a very different way. Grant?
Quite correct, Anthony. I think, people have options all the time. I think another case as well is that, when you're driving, you're on deadline, you've got multitude of things to do, and you get to the T junction. Do you go the route that you know, or do you go a route that you do not know, knowing full well that you may get held up because you're uncertain of what's ahead? And so 9 times out of 10, people tend to go in the direction that they know when they're under pressure because it's safe, it's secure, and it's experience. But it's sometimes just exploring or having the time to explore is not everyone's comfort zone or opportunity. But at the same time, what we're trying to say is let's try and look the other direction and maybe just go down that road a little while, because that is a very important part of where we find uncharted territory that can be unique to you.
So now you're probably getting a sense of why we've worded this in a very careful way and why we've put the emphasis on the not. So we're going to come to our final question that we want to get an answer to. And this is in relation to your financial freedom, because ultimately, not being Branson is about having the financial freedom to choose to not be Branson and do what you want to do, right? So where are you at in terms of financial freedom? I've not got the funds to secure the lifestyle I deserve. I'm okay, but I'm not realizing my potential. And that one would tend to refer to you're making a decent amount of money, but you're not really getting to that next level where you want to be. And to have whatever financial freedom looks like for you. Everybody's different here in this room. I'm sure there's different mixes of ages, different mixes of whether you've got children, whether they're old, whether they're young, all those different relationships. So financial freedom looks different for everybody. So answer it based on you. And of course, if you're in the green, then you're in Branson territory. So where are we at here? Okay, we're setting. So we want to see that coming in the chat. We're seeing a few here. Okay, so we're definitely pretty much in the red here. I think there's one here in the orange, but everyone else is in the red at the moment. And I think that's a true reflection of where most people are at, saying, you know, you're doing you're doing well enough to still be in business, but you're nowhere near the lifestyle you want. And great if you're in that orange category and you're starting to get on your way. You're making a decent amount, but you've still got a lot more potential to unlock there. So, yeah, just a couple of oranges there, but the rest are all very much in the red. So, we want you to keep a track of all of that for your own benefit as we go through, because it very much indicates this whole idea of where you are at and the opportunities that present themselves. So thank you for filling in those questions. We've not got more questions to answer for you at the moment, but we're going to keep continuing on with the presentation. So thank you for your honesty in answering that. It's very good to see where people are at the moment. So Grant, let's continue on, because we are most definitely not done yet.
Well, Anthony, what I think is good and bad about the traffic light system is that, first of all, there weren't many greens. And so, in one way, that's good in the sense that there's still tons of opportunity to be harvested, to be captured, to be gained, to be created. And I think that is a positive sign. At the same time, green is also good in the sense of that's the area that we're all striving for. That's the area that we would like to achieve. That's our ultimate goal. And so, once again, it's not negative. Nothing on the traffic light system has been negative or positive. It's merely just trying to understand where you're at, as to where there's opportunity, as to how best we can move forward and help you to achieve those areas of uniqueness that gives you recognition and get you recognized by your marketplace for what you do. So yeah, we're definitely not done yet. We'd like everyone to stick around till the end. We've got a great offer at the end where we'd love to be able to extend to everyone that is participating with us today. And at the same time, we're very excited to want to unbundle what we do with you.
Absolutely. And I think, as we alluded to at the beginning, we've got a very different way of thinking about things, and we're excuses, but we're going to use this car analogy all the way through because there's a very good reason for that, and it's very relatable. Um, Whilst we might not all be Formula One drivers, Grant, thinking about things in a different way gets you to another level. And the precision and timing that's involved in this kind of way of thinking is very different to what most of us probably think about in our business.
Anthony, I think what's important about this graphic is the fact that it's the number of people that were in the back end that helped to make sure that a pit stop like this particular vehicle was 2 seconds. But it came down to the fact that those people in the background were the ones that were making all the thinking and the difference to have this performance at this degree. Now, we're not saying that everyone's in a Formula One team, but what we're trying to say is about precision and performance. And everyone has that opportunity to create precision and performance within their business. And so You don't need to be a Formula One team, but the artistry of performance is vital ingredient with the view to be able to perform and to be able to recognize for what you do, how you do it, for when you do it, as to how many times you do it.
Absolutely.
So we get
So
into
yeah, I was
the
going to
rule
say,
of
let's
not.
get into this rule of not. I'm keen that people really understand the value of the not, because we most definitely have shown you a different way of thinking already. But let's show them one more, because I think this is the bit that the lights hopefully click into gear for everyone.
Well, this is the turning corner piece, right? This is where we take it and we have to really turn not on its head. We've really got to be able to take those negatives and be able to challenge them. Like we said, not all knots are negative, but at the same time, how do you address your knots and be able to design a plan that helps you figure out a way that we could find uncharted territory? So, our rule of knot is all about the niche, the originality, and the transformative value of what we want to put together. And I think those things are imperative that we try and just look at who you are, what is available to you, and how do we implement that transformation into your business in such a way that it becomes part of your DNA, your unique value proposition, your sort of attraction piece that gets you recognized for what you do. And so those are the kind of things that we are looking at in the sense of how to really get results, how to get um, people to just understand a little bit more of just what you do, your to stand it from your competitors. It's very hard when we haven't met you yet. We can't give you real examples at this point in time, but it is about just trying to just get you to understand that, not is not a negative. Not is can very well be a positive, and we're here to find that uncharted and positive territory going forward. The thing that we must realize is that what got you here is not what's going to get you there. And in this context, Branson land, as Anthony refers to. I think it is a case of understanding your terrain, understanding your business plan, your path, your processes, and your energy level as to where you're at, as to what you want to do, as to how you're feeling right now. Are you optimistic? Are you a little bit exhausted? Are you a little bit deflated? Because even the worst times when it came to Branson, he found opportunities to turn things around. And so we can do the same with you. It comes down to how can we unlock that not fair advantage and define it for you in such a way that it becomes part of your DNA as to what you do and how you sort of put things forward. Now,
And
when you look at
I
every,
think, Grant, if just interrupting there, if you've answered in some of your questions, particularly in the red and the orange, and we asked about you hitting barriers, and this is very much the reason why, because often what you've done to get to a certain point is fantastic, but that doesn't mean that same path is what's going to get you to the top. And if you think about it in terms of a mountain, you might get to the base of the mountain, you might even get to level 1 or 2, but there's a whole lot of different energy and effort that's required in order to get you to the next levels and to ascend. So I think that's an important aspect for people to understand in business. I know it's a term that we probably have heard a bit, but really sit there and ponder that for a moment. We're not saying that what you've been doing is bad. In fact, it's got you to where you are, so it's fantastic. But the question is how do you get to the next level? And getting
yeah,
to the next level is about taking some different steps. And if we use the car analogy, taking a different course of action, a different way to drive. So, Grant, so let's start showing them where to find their not fair advantage.
look, so every business has mainly three things, right? It has a customer, it has its people that work for them, and it has an offering. Now, people is a funny thing. You might be a business owner by yourself. You are the people. You are the workforce. If you have people working for you, well, you have a team. You have a collaboration. You have people that have come on board with the view to assist you in reaching your destination. And you've come with an offering in the sense of what it is that you put out that people wish to buy, in the sense of the problem that you're solving, in the sense of why they need you in order to go forward. And so all businesses should and do have these three commodities. But when it comes to looking for your unfair advantage, it's normally where you least expect it to be. And this is the part that we help you with. This is the part where we help define it, design it, and designate it in the sense of your team as to how you bring this all together. Because at the end of the day, when we're looking at how you harmonize the three components of your business and find your unique, not fair advantage opportunity, that's the opportunity when we get people to start reaching destinations. That's the area where we start to arrive at places where we get going. That's
I've
the area that we find opportunity to really make sure that you are enjoying your business and what you do within your business. Anthony.
I think it's an important point for people to understand here is saying it's a bit like if you we'll go back to the mountain analogy for a moment. If you get to the top of the mountain, if you don't plant your flag and you don't paint, if you don't post a picture on social media and start telling everyone about it, who knows that you reach the top of the mountain? I think that it's a really important aspect for people to understand that the destination is also about sharing it with everyone. We know, for example, about Richard Branson's island. We know about what Richard Branson does and where he's up to because he tells people about it. And there's a very strategic reason for telling people about it because if you stay silent and nobody knows anything about you, how do they know anything about your business? And how do they know anything about your not fair advantage? So part of the not fair advantage is definitely broadcasting that and publishing it and letting people know about it. It has to be part of your journey.
And so this is where we want to maybe showcase you a few examples where businesses that you know, that you recognize, these are brands that you're going to be associated to, all use their not fair advantage in order to find an advantage for their particular businesses. And you know these examples. I know that you do. But if we look at, for example, Lego was going out of business. They were literally going out of business. They were losing money hand over fist until they got a particular CEO that came in who had no experience about toys or plastic manufacturing or anything like that. But he just looked at things in a very different way and was able to move this brand, this business, into a new territory with the view that it has now got scope in the sense of where it plays and what it does. And we're not going to go too long in each one of these stories, but we do also know the Kodak story. The Kodak story fell out of business, but they were the ones who designed, who invented a digital camera, and yet they did not take that advantage. They went and dismissed it in the sense that they felt it was never going to happen to them. And it did, and that was a very clear example. The other one that I really, really love is Red Bull. For example, they came into the market, they could not compete with the other bigger players in the marketplace. But today, they're a contender. There's a Formula One team that runs two teams out of just the profits of what they built out of this particular business. They've got a unique flavor, they've got a unique offering, they've got a unique can, they've got a unique taste as well. It's not one of my favorites, but be that as it may, they became something that was recognized in a cluttered market. Uber did exactly the same. The taxi industry did not see Uber coming in a month of Sundays, and instantly we all got recognized for the value that Uber gave us. But then so gave the opportunity for their competitors to react. Anthony, you want to go on with that one?
Yeah, I think it's really important here that the focus actually I want to put on it is on the taxis. So most people talk about the Uber story, and we know the Uber story. But what's really interesting, the taxis have found their own place as well, because taxis have a different advantage to what Uber does. So taxis are uniform, so there's a consistency in what you're going to get, whereas Uber, you're not really quite sure what vehicle's going to show up and what the standard of that vehicle or the quality of the driver. Whereas taxis, they all go through a regimented training as well. So you can't, you know, they don't just hand out the taxi license in the same way that you can achieve an Uber license. So there's lots of different things that they've found their consistent space in the market. And we do know at times taxis can be cheaper, but sometimes we want to pay for the security of what you get in a taxi, right? They've got their cameras, they've got their systems, all of those things. It's and the identification, all that stuff makes it a lot easier to be consistent and understand that. So there's a place for both of them in the market. They've just found their own unique advantage. But Grant, I think it's important we also just quickly finish up with a very brief story of how this is relatable at a local level. So everyone can picture this. There's two hairdressers that are working opposite side of the road to one another. In fact, one's well and truly established, and another one opens up across the road. The one that opens up across the road starts to advertise that it's doing $10 haircuts. Now, lots of people start coming to it because they want the cheap haircut. The other side of the road, the original hairdresser's wondering, what's going on here? What am I supposed to do? What is my advantage? I can't compete on price because you can't spiral down and do $9 haircuts or $5 haircuts because no one's going to make any money out of it. So, what was the answer that this particular hairdresser found? The answer was they put up a sign that says, "We fix $10 haircuts." Let that sit with you for a moment. A very clever and simple way of advertising it. That was their not fair advantage, right? And this is the difference. One wants to compete on price, the other one wants to compete on quality in their own particular way. They had a bit of fun with it. Both hairdressers survive. It's a great story and it's one that we can all relate to. So, whilst you might be thinking about some of these other bigger brands, it's actually really relatable what they have done at a localized level. So, I think these were some important stories to share with everyone to give you some perspective. But the whole important rule here of not is that it's applicable to you. There is not a single business that this is not applicable to. You just have to think a little bit differently and create the opportunities that come as a result of it. So, Grant, I think let's just play out for them a little bit about where you might find your not fair advantage, because there's lots of different paths that people can go down, and we've got a little bit of a wagon wheel of some of those high level areas.
Absolutely. But I think, Anthony, just following that, I think another very unique example would be, and it's not something that you are familiar with or something that you are aware of, but it's just a little bit of point of thought in the sense of what I'm about to say. So think of a butcher, and a butcher sells meat. They cut the meat, they pack the meats, they give you the best cuts, they do everything. But imagine a butcher that says, and we cook as well. Now, that's a very different point of view to what we've always known butchers to do. Butchers have always just sold us the meat and off you go and do what you had to do in the kitchen. But imagine if you had to turn around and say, but we cook it for you as well. What a point of difference that would be in the sense of that recognition. And so those are ultimately the kind of things that we're after with the view to understand how we do it.
Okay, Grant, if I can just interrupt there for a moment, because I think it's really important to tell everybody here that we've now taken you through some stories of what bigger brands have done and some smaller brands have done. We've explained to you what the whole principle behind not is and why not being Branson is the thing you need to achieve. But the question really remains then, how are we going to get you there? So this is what's important. Sit back and take some notes. And remember that there is going to be a great opportunity that is exclusive for you at the end of this little bit of presentation on how we're going to get you there. Because we are really determined to make sure that you are going to get to the point of not being Branson. So what we're going to reveal in a moment, and Grant will start walking you through, is what are the important facets behind finding your not fair advantage as a starting point. Now, don't worry, you don't have to work that out for yourself now, because that's what the opportunity is going to be. We're going to give you something that nobody else is going to get. This is really a very limited opportunity for those of you that are either here today or watching this replay and have been invited to do so. We're going to give a select few people this opportunity at the end that is worth quite a bit of money normally. So please sit back and watch as we walk you through what some of the principles are behind your not fair advantage and getting you to not being Branson. So let me feed back to Grant, who's going to walk you through the first part of this idea.
Now, everyone has a not fair advantage within their business. There are internal forces, there are external forces. We look at the why, we look at the people, we look at the alignments, we look at your future strengths, the market dynamics, the ecosystem. There's literally not a spot that we can't find or ask questions or look for. You know, Starting to build your not fair advantage is about positioning yourself ahead of a curve. It's about creating sustainability and that competitive advantage. It's about building a business that you actually want, that you deserve, that you've dreamt about, and achieving a lifestyle you envisage for yourself. Hence why all those questions that we gave to you in the traffic light system and you answered for us was just basically to get you to understand where there's still so much ample opportunity coming forward as to how best we do that and get there. And if we look at some of these people, now you may know them. There's a prize for anyone who can nominate the lady. If you want to write in there and just give us the name of the lady, but she's very, very, very wealthy. But if you look at, for example, these characters, they did not do it alone. Okay, they found a not fair advantage to get their advantage to be recognized for the value they are in the marketplace. Anthony, any takers there on the lady nominee that we put on forward?
There's a couple of wrong guesses in here. No, we're not getting people who recognize. And it's interesting actually because she's probably not as instantly recognizable as the others, but we'll just mention the others and give people another moment or two. So for those that are not Formula One fans, like Grant and myself, Oscar Piastri on the left-hand side there is the Australian Formula One driver, the only Australian Formula One driver on the grid at the moment. Jeremy Clarkson, who most of you should probably know, and I'm going to come back to Jeremy in a moment. And of course, we've got Branson on the end there. Okay, let's put them out of their misery. It's Melanie Perkins. She and her husband own and founded and own Canva. That she is worth $18.5 billion as of the end of last year. So she's worth a pretty penny as a result of it. I think it's interesting here. I mean, we could talk about each of these stories separately, and we don't have a lot of time, but I think the Jeremy Clarkson story is a really interesting one when you look at it on the face value, and particularly, so people are familiar with him driving cars and Top Gear and the Grand Tour, and then more recently with Clarkson's Farm. The interesting thing about Jeremy is he has made a career out of not being the greatest. He doesn't hide
Yes.
away from the fact that he's not great. He's a terrible farmer, right? And he's the first to put up his hand and say he is. He has a go at everything and he stuffs everything up. And I think that's the endearing part about it. He's embraced that. And
Yeah.
what Top Gear was all based on originally and then subsequently the Grand Tour is very much about all of the stuff ups and having a go at things and the things that were normally in outtakes became the complete show. And it was a
Yeah.
different way of thinking about it. They were not being a regular car show. And I think even in crowded market, the precision that Oscar Piastri offers to create his own persona, his own way of doing things, which hopefully will get him to world champion in this year for those of
Absolutely.
us that are in Australia and a little bit biased. So sorry to all the Americans, you might be cheering for the new Cadillac team, but it's really important to understand that each of these people don't go it alone. They've got a team around them that make these things possible, but they've zeroed in about not doing what everybody else is doing. Because you can imagine in a Formula One sense, if there were 20 drivers or 22 drivers on the grid, everybody had the same car, everybody drove exactly the same way, it'd be a tie. It's not a tie because there's lots of things where they get an advantage out of it. And those advantages come from individual elements of it. It might be because of the way someone drives or their build. It also comes because of the people that contribute to that team, where they get that not fair advantage that might happen that builds something around them to be unique. So again, we could go through lots of stories, and we won't go into the stories of Melanie and Richard now because you're probably familiar with some of those to an extent. But I think the point here is really about finding a not fair advantage is so important. And that's what we have built our careers on. I think that's what we alluded to at the beginning. Grant and I coming together is very much about this whole idea of we want you to find your idea of what not being Branson is. And we also, to get you there, we want to make sure that you understand what your not fair advantage is and how to get there as well. So we have got, as we alluded to, we've got some opportunities for you, and we want you to stay tuned to the end here. So um, I think this is important that we tell everyone here that there's a really significant opportunity with this. Now, this is for people who are in this call at the moment, and we'll even extend it to those who are watching the replay here as well. Right, so this is going to be a limited time offer because we are normally going to charge for this. But right now, we are planning to run an event in April, and we'll confirm the dates in the coming weeks, but it'll be in the second half of April. And we are going to be putting on a workshop. We're going to give you a personal report, which is going to help you understand where you are actually positioned in the market based on what other people think you are about. So that's a very important differentiation. And we've built something that is going to give you a real sense of where they're at, of where you're at, and create that opportunity perhaps to go a step further. And I think that's an important issue for people to see, is that the real opportunity here is to work with us and to understand what not being Branson is really about and what the plan is to get your not fair advantage. So all we want you to do is, if you are interested in being part of it, if you are online here now, then definitely put a yes in the chat for us, and we'll make sure you're included in that list. And then for those of you that are watching the replay, definitely if you can send us a email, we'll put our details, or we'll put my details in the place where you're watching this, and you'll be able to send me a note saying, yes, I want into the April event, and we'll make sure you're on that list to be part of it. As I said, it's going to be a very limited opportunity for people to do that, Grant. And I think one of the important aspects of all of this as well is, as we alluded to before, that finding your advantage is one part of the journey, I should say. Building the plan to how to get there is another part, and getting there and then telling everyone about it is an important aspect of that as well. So part of what we're going to do is we're going to have a panel-based podcast session where we're going to give you the opportunity to tell the world and to share with the world what your not fair advantage is, something that you'll have worked on as part of this other process that we've gone through along the way. So Grant, a really unique opportunity. And thank you to some of the people that have joined us late here as well. So you'll be able to watch the replay of this a little bit later on, because if you've missed what we've gone through so far. But Grant, this is going to be an exciting one.
Look, Anthony, quite correct. And so basically, we're looking to work on the mindset, from victim to owner to foundation, building on solid ground, to the environment of positioning you in the marketplace, to your purpose, clarity on your why. Why do you exist? Why are you working so hard? Why are you wanting to achieve the goals that you want to achieve? And naturally, of course, the one that I love the most is value proposition, in the sense of your differentiation. What is your product about? How do we define it? How do we enhance it? How do we educate the market? And naturally, how do we publish? How do we get people to educate and grow your market and get them to recognize you for the value that you bring, which is ultimately what we started this presentation on, in the sense of, it's not about you, it's about everyone else, what they think about you. So one of the things that we look at is bringing this to close, in the sense of the opportunity we've had to just have some fun with you, to just play with you, to just be able to push the mental boundaries a little bit as to some of your personal business challenges that you have, as to how best could we just maybe just take a moment, work with us. Let's see if we can find your not fair advantage and take it to market. So Anthony, bringing this to close, I think this is where we're going to be at. And, we're all about, just, are you ready to not be in Branson?
I think it's an important thing, and we go back to where we started all this from, is we want you to create your own version of what Branson is for you. What is that final destination that you want to be at? Because Branson's dream, as we said at the beginning, is his dream. What is your dream? And why aren't you getting there at the moment? We want to make sure that you can get there. We want to make sure that you can think about things in a completely different way. That's why we want you to come on the journey with us through the workshop, and also indeed through the report, so you actually understand what people think about you at the moment and where the opportunities lie. Because I can guarantee you on this statement, because I've had this with many people over the years, that most of your existing clients don't even know the full value of what you bring to the table. So imagine the opportunities that present themselves when you start making people realize what your not fair advantage is and why you are not like everybody else. I think embracing this whole idea of not is so important, and hopefully you've had an opportunity to understand that. Now, what I want to do here now is, Grant, I think it's important that we give people an opportunity to ask some questions, but in fairness for people who want to keep a little bit anonymous and don't necessarily want to be this on the broadcast, we're going to end the recording here, but we're going to extend the opportunity for people to ask questions beyond this. So, therefore, everyone who's been watching this, thank you for watching the replay. Please let us know if you'd like to book an appointment to chat this further. We'll chat about this further. We'll include some details as well. Let us know your scorecard as well when you do. We'd love to hear how you went with your 4 questions and what traffic light symbols were associated with that. And we look forward to having you join us in the April event. So please, again, let us know if you're interested. All right. Grant, I'm going to
Thank
hit.
you, everyone. Thank you from my side as well. It was great to have this opportunity just to present to you. We'd love to get to know you a little bit better. We look forward for you all joining us in April. And once again, just doing a little bit of a deep dive as to where your not fair advantage could be. That's the most exciting part for me.